everybody. Today I have a really special guest with me, Gina. I know her from Wise, my first ever company abroad, and which has really, really shaped my life, honestly. And I met the most amazing people in my life, and Gina has definitely been one of them, one of the most authentic people I know. And I am so, so glad, Gina, that you said yes to this. I am so happy, honestly, because you one person, and I've seen that myself, where there's so many people working in the same office with different backgrounds, different opinions, and you always need that one person to bridge the gap and bring people together while being authentic and true to their own opinion. And you're definitely one of those people. So for me, there's always been so much to learn while we're working directly, indirectly in the same office. And now while I'm doing this, I'm so excited that there's going to be so much to learn from you. So thank you so much for coming on board.
Well, thank you for inviting me. We were always so busy because we were growing this, tiny company to a huge company, helping all these millions of customers. So we were both so busy doing our job. But I remember every time I walked down the office and I ran into you, that I just got all, your smile and the positive energy was like, made me feel better, if I felt stressed.
So thank you so much for this. And I know that whoever hears this podcast will definitely, leave this 30 minutes of their life much more happier, maybe more positive, maybe even calmer, depends on, the good energy that flows through today. So thank you so much again. But maybe we can get right into it, Gina, and talk about your experience at Wise. So you joined as an early employee and you moved to Estonia. Let's get right into, how you started off, whatever you've built throughout your career. It was a good, risky sort of a career choice that you made. So let's get into it.
It was. So that was probably one of the riskiest decisions I've ever made, but also one of my favorite stories that has ever happened in my life. And it's such a weird, cool story. And I'll just tell you the whole story, and to whoever listens to this, let's see if you can take anything away. So I had this moment actually in my career. I was always this very ambitious German person, even in university, the jobs I would take while I'm in university, they would always have to be better and better and better. And, on the resume, it would always have to go up and up and up and up. And even in university or in school, I would never have taken jobs that in Germany are considered non-ambitious jobs, like a call center job, like a customer support job. I don't know about Pakistan. In Germany, that's kind of considered to be a thing that you take a customer support job if you don't know what you want to do with your life.
That's true. Yep.
That's the idea. So I never would have done that. So I was at this point, I think I was maybe 24, 25. And I had a job offer to work as a consultant, like in a consultancy. And it was exactly the next right step, like exactly what I should have taken on my resume. And I had with my friend, we had just learned about this practice called listening prayer. So it's this weird idea that, how most people pray, they say like, dear God, please help me pass this exam. Amen. Like this, So you talk, but you don't listen. And we had just learned about the spiritual practice that you ask a question and then you kind of close your eyes and you see what kind of thoughts come to you. And who knows? Basically, we just said, let's try this. And we listened. And I remember saying, I have this job offer. I'm going to take it. It's the next step on my resume. Is there anything I should know? And then we both closed our eyes. And then I know the thought that came was take a call center job instead. And actually, I remember my response was kind of in my chair. I went back like this. I was like, what? It didn't make sense to me. And I actually even remember thinking and saying like, excuse me, what? I've worked so hard to build up my resume. Why a call center job? And then the next thought that came to me was because you are a slave to your resume, and it matters so much to you at a party that you can say something impressive and that it looks good, and you're not actually free, you're a slave to your resume and how you look on the outside. And when that thought came, I was actually thinking that's true. But then the thing is, I might be making this up, okay? Who knows if there's a higher source of wisdom and love that's giving me ideas? I might be completely making this shit up, okay? And then
No, but I do believe, of course. I mean, I think everybody associates their higher power to, whatever they believe in. But I do believe there is that existence, and it sometimes speaks through you, speaks through mediums, So again, it's always about, when people say listen to your gut, it's literally just that. So this is profound. Oh my God. Wow.
So I still don't know, if there was a God, I kind of think so, but you can never know. But so I had this thought, take a call center job. But the thing is, I even spoke to my parents, and my parents are like, why did you even do a master's? Okay. And I even spoke to a German recruiter, and they're like, I remember the German recruiter saying, this is gonna mess up your resume. If this, and so I was there thinking like, do I follow this interesting idea or call or gut feeling? Or do I make a head decision to not do it? Because and then I thought back and forth for 2 months, because it seemed like such a huge decision to mess up my career forever, and then I decided I'm going to do it. I'm going to try and see what happens. And then actually my friend, you also know her, Mallory, who she had heard about Wise, this tiny startup, and that they needed Germans for their call center, right? Customer support. So I just said, I'm going to do it. And I joined. And when I joined, it was 50 people. Now it's, I think, close to 3,000 people, right? So when I left,
definitely over 2,000. It's crazy how it's grown so much.
So what ended up happening is that, to my total surprise, first of all, the customer support job was the most fun job I've ever had, even though it looked the least impressive on my resume, because the team was so fun, what we were building, the mission, so fun. But also, of course, it turned out to be a huge blessing to join in a tiny startup that grew so fast that at the time, right, I got to have more responsibility, new roles, build the whole German team, build all the European customer support, then, become a product manager and it was just turned out to be the biggest blessing ever. I learned so much, and this still blows my mind that happened in my life.
Wait, so how long were you in the customer support team?
So actually a total of 4 years, because first I was, a customer support person for Germany, like having to translate the app and everything. But then I built the German team in the 2nd year. Then I built all of the European year in the 3rd year. So I think it was 3 or 4 years total in customer support. Yeah.
And what did you learn throughout this experience?
I think what I learned, so that's the thing. This is the thing I learned. If you're in your 20s, really, it's so smart to take a job where you're going to learn a lot, more so than make a lot of money, because that's the thing with
that is a very wise choice.
Yes. I didn't know that at the time. Honestly, I wish I could say I was so smart to know and join this tiny startup. No, I just figured all of this out by accident. But looking back, the thing with startups is you don't get paid the same amount, right? You get paid much less. They can't afford that. So I actually remember this moment, or maybe that's a different story, but I just remember this moment at one point, my later 20s, talking to my German friends that had stayed in Germany, and they were all buying BMWs, because they were in Germany with German salary and not in a startup. And I was in Estonia, which is a lower salary already, and then a startup, which is even less salary. I was totally not buying a BMW. In fact, at one point, I lived in an apartment with 5 people. We were sharing. That was the way with the customer support, salary kind of to make it,
Understandable. Very understandable, though. But how was your life in Estonia? So you moved from Germany to Estonia for TransferWise, not Wise.
Actually, not for TransferWise. That was just after my bachelor. I had to make that decision. Where do I do my master's? And then I decided to go somewhere kind of exotic from a German perspective, because
it is actually an exotic place in Europe. So let's put it this way.
It is, yes. Yeah. And I really knew nothing about it, but I just decided to move instead of going to London or Paris or something like known, go somewhere I don't know. So I did that. And then my experience is that I've always lost money moving to another country, from Germany to Estonia. And then from Estonia to the US this year, it was always crazy expensive. I always lost money in the first couple of years. But, I learned so much in terms of perspective and wisdom.
Even for me, right, it was pretty much the same when I moved from Pakistan to Estonia, right? Even though Estonia is considered one of the, like, how do I say this? Like, cost-wise, of course, it's cheaper to live in Estonia than many other European countries. But if I was to compare this with Pakistan, of course, I did feel that shift right away. And then when I moved from Estonia to Finland, again, I sort of felt that shift right away. But then when you're moving abroad as a student is very different from the time when you're moving abroad as someone who's had a little bit of savings, had a little bit of work experience, because I think it puts you in a different sort of a box, right? Where I think inner confidence obviously has doubled by the time you're moving out for work again. And also you have enough purchasing power, right? Where you can go ahead, maybe you'll of course have challenges with, finances again, but you're able to, figure out those moves a little better, in terms of risk as well. So I think, yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense. Moving abroad is never easy, but it's obviously like one of the best challenges that anyone can, take on for themselves.
Curious, yeah, how you see your move from Pakistan to Estonia and then from Estonia to Finland, how you see that looking back in terms of an investment decision. Like how
that is so interesting. That is so interesting. I think for me, when I was moving from Pakistan to Estonia, I wanted to, honestly, the main thing that I was looking forward to was freedom. So my investment, I would say, was in terms of that, even though I moved for studies, but at the back of my head, I knew that it's just an excuse. That's just going to be, for me, putting my foot in the door, finding an opportunity. And as soon as I found work, I'm just going to start working, because as much as I love learning, I know that I like learning in a work kind of an environment, like learning on the go, learning with people, learning while doing something. And now moving from Estonia to Finland, I feel like my investment is more towards improving my quality of life.
Yes.
Yes. So definitely, again, that different. Yes, that's such a good question. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating, because what you're bringing out is goals behind the money, that it's not just about the money, but what you get that's not financial, freedom. Oh my gosh, you can't put a value on that,
True. Yeah. No, it's
And
crazy. It's insane. Wow. Thank you. Oh God. Wow, we're already getting into deep stuff, Gina. I love this conversation already. Thank you so much. Okay, now coming back to your time at Wise. So you started off with customer support, 4 years in CS, and then started climbing up the ladder again, right? And the indirect exposure that I had to your work was when you were a senior PM, and also as a PM as well, product manager for EU. And that's how I was indirectly affiliated and saw your work from the outside. And for me, it was always so interesting to see how you work, because even in meetings, physically, virtually, wherever, I've seen your work, I think you're definitely one of those people who can easily bring the most disagreeable people on the same page. And honestly, I feel like that's a force, that's a power. Like, not many people can do that. I really want to understand, like, again, not coming down to how you do that, but how have you learned to bring people together? Of course, working with people from different backgrounds might have a role to play in it. Having friends from different backgrounds might have a role to play in it as well. So I just want to understand, like, how has that journey been for you with Estonia, outside Estonia? So yeah.
What an interesting question. So I actually think that if we think about it from an investment perspective, that investing in relationships is one of the best investments you can make. And I can tell you stories from outside work about that, but inside work is what you're talking about right now. What I experienced is that if I invest into building amazing relationships with my teammates, and investing in building like a joyful team, this is actually going to be the most resilient team, because if the joy in a team is high, and by joy, what I mean is that we are happy to be together. We're happy to be talking to each other right now. But if you think about a product team or a team at work, they're happy, like they're happy to be together. These teams are going to be the most resilient, because the thing is, if you build anything meaningful at work, it's gonna get hard. It's guaranteed. There will be these times when it takes longer and it's harder than you thought, and that's where the team morale goes down. But if you have, invested in strong team relationships, that's what will push you through. And really just the details of that, it's not even that hard. I think there are a few elements like calling out the good you see in someone.
I love that. Yeah.
I remember that at one point that felt like a big shift in my team when we started doing what we called shout outs. So on a regular basis, I don't know if it was every other week during sprint planning, we started by saying, okay, time for shout outs, right? And I say, thank you to the engineer for pushing this code live, or,
And I think it's a very important point that you've mentioned here, because I feel like we're in the startup world, it's very data driven. And sometimes only when you do something wrong, that is when you get called out. So it's really important that you're mentioning this, where when you do the good, that should also be appreciated and recognized even more actually than, sometimes where you do fuck up. And it's fine to even have those moments, because you cannot have the bestest day as an employee. Like you can't have the bestest day as yourself every day. So there will be low points and high points on the go. So yeah, it's really important that you mentioned that. Yeah.
You wouldn't believe the difference that makes in terms of energy that people get. Actually, I have a story about that myself. That's just of my entire working career. I've had so many good bosses. There was this one boss who was so smart. Oh my gosh, it was so good to work with him. And so what he did is it felt like he only ever gave me constructive feedback. So if I did something super well, he would just be like, a nod or something. But if I could have done something better, that's where the detailed feedback came. And I've heard that for some people, which is actually, I think, including him, getting constructive feedback, that's the most motivating thing ever. Then they rise to the challenge. Whereas with like positive feedback, some people might actually feel a bit uncomfortable and not quite know how to respond. So, and if I remember correctly, maybe that was the situation for him. And he just then treated like his team the same way he almost would have preferred to be treated. So he gave constructive feedback. Anyway, I found myself in the situation where I really appreciated working with him, but I was feeling a little down from just constructive feedback, because the way I work is call out what I do well, and then I'm like excited, and then I also want the constructive feedback, like a good combination of the two.
Good balance, yes, for sure.
And then I remember having to make this brave decision where I was like, I really want to tell him that. I literally want to ask him to tell me more nice things, but I also felt this worry of, if I say that, am I gonna come across as weak or not professional or something, And then eventually I just thought, well, being authentic, and is important to me, and I don't want to live a fear-based life. So in the end, I just told him, I said, like, I want you to tell me more nice things. And then
I love that.
We talked about it, but it ended up becoming my favorite relationship, like boss, mentor relationship. It ended up becoming so amazing. I think it's a story about investing in relationships. Being your honest self is also a way to invest in relationships. Asking for what you want takes courage.
There's so many people, where it can be very intimidating, to give feedback to a manager or like a superior person in your workplace. But again, being authentic to yourself, it really comes down to that, like you mentioned. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. But one more question on that note, Gina. So coming back to your role at Wise, because you have stayed in the company for
8 years.
8 years. Wow. Okay. If I can ask, in terms of, skill building, because 8 years is a long time, and a fast-paced environment like TransferWise, even a year is equivalent to, like, I think 3 or 4 years in a corporate environment. So having 8 years in a startup, fast-paced environment where people are growing, teams are growing, you are growing, there's endless opportunities to grow as well. So I just want to understand, like, how was that for you in terms of skill building? Because you moved from different teams as well. So maybe you want to share more about that too.
Yeah. And I do want to share, just for context, for anybody who hasn't been in a crazy growing startup, what that looks like. If when you start there are 50 people, and when you leave there 2,500, what that actually means is every morning when you get into the elevator to go up to the office, there's somebody new in the elevator,
Oh my God.
And then, so in the beginning, it's so exciting, for the first year or two, you're like, good morning, who are you? I'm so glad you're here. And you want to build the culture and everything. But I remember getting to the point where I get into the elevator, 2 new faces, and I'm just thinking like, I don't even care who you are anymore. Like I can't ask you right now. And I just said nothing. Oh my gosh, I still remember that. So I think that being humble to be hungry for constructive feedback is one to grow your skill set. But then another one that's actually also investment related, because it has to do with money, is I have to say, to keep up not only with the growth of the company, which means you have to get, even if you stayed in the same position, you would have to grow anyway, to keep up with. But if on top of that you want to like advance in your career, what I actually did several times is I invested my actual money into getting a coach and paying a coach to speed up my learning, my leadership learning, so that and that was, I remember back then that it felt like, ooh, that's a lot of money, especially the one coach I wanted to get was very expensive because she had so much experience. But looking back, that was a smart decision to pay.
That's actually really smart decision. Honestly, I did not know that. So in terms of, okay, maybe can you explain that a little more?
Yes.
Like experience with a coach and what sort of skills did you learn from them and how did you put that into practice at Wise?
I have 2 examples. So one time, so I was in the role of being a product manager and I wanted to grow to become a senior product manager, which is different kinds of skill sets. So I actually joined this coaching program for like 3 months with product managers from all around the world. And like they're teaching each other and there's a product manager coach, right? And that meant actually after work on the weekends, I was on Zoom doing these product case studies with product managers from all. But that actually exactly helped me to kind of fill the gap of skills that I needed. And I've also worked with just a business coach, her name is Sarah, and she's also amazing, on leadership skills. So just specifically leadership skills.
I mean, personal development does come at a cost as well sometimes, right? And it's definitely about how much are you willing to grow and how much are you willing to give in to get what you want, right? So that's, oh, wow. That is amazing. Honestly, that's definitely one of the things that I'll also personally take away from, our conversation today, because it's very important, whether you seek mentorship from someone or you seek mentorship from a coach that can help you get better. That's amazing. Wow. So but in terms of skill set, Gina, you just mentioned how different it is from being a product manager and then going to a senior product manager. I've so far not really interviewed anybody from this field of work or having the skill set. So maybe if you can shed more light on that as well. So what are the skills required to become a product manager and then taking it further?
Oh, that's such a good point. And I feel like somebody else would be even better, like Sharon or Jonty would be amazing to answer this even more in detail. I mean, the role of a product manager is to create impact for your customers, the biggest possible impact. That's really what that is all about. So that has really 2 sides. I would say 3 things that come immediately to mind. So one is, you're going to be a person looking out there you're always looking for the opportunities and trying to weigh them all. What new things could you build or what messed up thing could you fix? For them, you're always prioritizing. And so the other part is bringing the team together, because without the team, it's not happening, and the challenging part is you will have people from customer support who say, I've had 15 calls about the stupid bug. You need to fix this now because I hate my life. Okay. So that's what they want. And ops wants something else, but you might know that actually if the engineers do not fix this bug, but instead spend their time on building this new thing, it will actually have much bigger impact for way more customers, right? But navigating this, like explaining this, getting the customer team on board with taking more of these shitty calls because there's a high impact. Ooh, that's the really hard part, aligning the team around that. That's really hard. So I think it's that's how I would summarize the skills. And really then the difference between product manager and senior product manager, they really in a way do this, they both do this, but the senior product manager will do this on a much bigger scale. That means there might be 10, 15 things that are being built for the customers at the same time. So that means actually you have to get even better bringing people together because there's less you can do yourself because there's so much going on. So I think that's how you grow in the leadership skill sector from product managers to senior.
Amazing. And any advice for people who do want to go down this path of becoming a product manager?
I think the way to start is always to look for the impact.
Right.
So
Yes.
look for the impact, right? And no matter what your role you're in, you can be in customer support. That's where I was, right? And just by talking to people all day long, I could see opportunities. And then so you found an opportunity, but then the next skill is figure out how this prioritizes between, how many people are impacted compared to what else the product team is working on. So you present that in a way that's well prioritized. And then the last part, actually, even if you're not in the product team, how far can you actually go in making it happen?
Right.
So what smart way can you figure out to make this thing happen for the customers, even if the engineers are maybe not aware or don't have time, sorry. So, and there will be ways that you can do that also if you're in customer support or whatever. So that's basically, I think, proving that you're already doing some of the skills on a small scale is how to grow into that. And then you will be recognized and they will start working.
You really need to have an eye for like considering every challenge or every obstacle as an opportunity in a sense, and then, prioritizing according to that.
Yes.
Okay. Amazing. So now coming back to, your career and how you've built for yourself, Gina, after 8 years, you did get a chance to take a sabbatical, which is a perk offered by Wise to his employees. Wait, did you take 2 sabbaticals or did you take 1?
Actually, I took 1 after 4 years. So amazing. But then the other one was a sabbatical I took I don't know, a few months before the 8 years were full. I knew it was time. So actually that was my own sabbatical that I made. Yeah.
Amazing. But I really want to understand, how did you use that time to invest in, broadening your horizons or decide on what do you want to do next? Because after, 8 years at a company, which went from being a startup and then also went public, there was a lot of, financial decisions as well that you had to make, of course. So how did that part of your journey and part of your life come about?
That was another super scary decision because actually,
I can imagine.
Oh my gosh, because Wise is the kind of company that if you give your best, there will always be amazing opportunities for you, So actually, I had opportunities to move to another country, open another office, really exciting stuff. But somehow inside me, I could feel that if I took that next career move, it would actually be a fear-based decision because my fear was this is the best team ever. There can't be anything even better or as good out there for me. And inside me, I really knew that after 8 years of this crazy fast working speed, I actually, my heart, my brain needed a break. That's what I really wanted. I wanted, my inner kind of secret dream was to go travel for a year and just go on a world trip and find people that are solving interesting problems. That was my goal, and interview them and just get inspired about what else, is out there outside fintech. But yeah, I was going back and forth a lot because those opportunities were really amazing. But I could just feel it would have been a fear-based decision of if I take a break now, those opportunities will never come back. But yeah, then because I know.
Because once Wise, let's say when you joined in, it was sort of, that uncomfort zone, right?
Yes.
But when you into a comfort zone, it's so hard to leave it.
Yes.
One of the hardest decisions that you need to make, honestly.
It's oh my gosh, it's so hard. Yes. But
there's this one thing there's one video actually that I watched recently. I think it was this week. And the guy was talking about how one of the most important skills that a lot of people who've been successful in their careers or, things like that have is they know when to quit so that they can start something new.
Oh, definitely.
And I felt it inside. I was like, that makes so much sense, because there's so much fear around quitting. And quitting obviously doesn't necessarily mean failure. It's supposedly, once you quit, you're just failing in your, let's say, your job or your career or things like that. But it doesn't really mean like that, It actually means that you have opened a new door for yourself to start something new, to maybe figure yourself out, learn something else, maybe find a coach like you did, to try something else and upgrade your skill set. So yeah, that was one sort of a learning that I had related to, quitting. And it was very sort of deep, I'd say.
You know what about quitting? I've actually learned, you might have heard this, that a good time to quit is actually when things are going well, not necessarily when you're feeling completely down, because that's what I ended up doing. The time that I left Wise was actually a time of great opportunity, you know, but there was actually another time, like maybe 4 or 5 years in, where I felt like I wanted to quit. I'm so down. I actually did in the mornings when my alarm went off.
Yeah.
I took up to 1 hour of the alarm ringing and I couldn't get out of bed. And I was so exhausted. And, you know, and that was like a lot was happening, like a divorce and a lot was happening in my life. But I remember wanting to quit because I was like, I can't, I'm so exhausted. And then again, I was working with a coach, actually, Birgit, whom you might know from ex-Wiser, but she said, actually, this might not be a good moment to quit, because she said, do you have any plan that you actually feel excited about that you're going to do instead? And I had none. I was just tired, right? And she said, if you don't have something that you're excited about that you're jumping into, she actually gave me this advice, like go part-time instead to recharge your batteries. So I actually did that for half a year, and that felt very brave because, you know, people were saying you can't do your job with half time, or it's like a bad career decision, but in the end, actually, you know, it turned out to be perfect because I got to show that you can have a huge impact even part-time. And on my time off, I got to just recharge my batteries, and then I came back, you know, with like full energy to do this.
It's much needed. Honestly, it's really needed. But like you mentioned, right, you need to like understand when to step away and when to step like completely off the grid. So yeah, awesome. But coming back to making financial decisions, it's very relevant to you know, choosing your career. And right now, Gina, if we can come to your, you know, life right now, I think this has been so inspiring for me as well, because you know, having you as someone honestly I really look up to. I really, really do. And having you at Wise doing what you did and having an amazing, awesome career, definitely exemplary. A lot of people want to, you know, like you've set an example for a lot of people, right? And then you moved on, and like you said, you know, you wanted to travel, meet new people, and with that came a lot of opportunity for you as well. A lot of changes in life, beautiful changes. So maybe we can get into that part as well.
Yes. So I was traveling with my friend Helen. We're traveling through Colorado, and we go to Denver Startup Week, you know, anyway, meet people. And my friend Helen, she meets this guy, and then she comes home to our Airbnb and she says to me, Gina, I think you should meet this guy. I think he's kind of what you're looking for. And turns out, so good to have friends who know you. You know,
honestly, the best wingman.
That's why investing in friendships is so, it really can pay off, you know.
For sure.
Yes. But yeah, turns out she's really good at this. So she actually, you know.
Shout out to Helen.
Yes, shout out to Helen. Oh my gosh, yes. So, you know, I met this man that really was what I was looking for. He was in the US. I'm based in Estonia. And he has 2 kids here and shared custody in the US, so he can't move. So I had to make this decision. Do I leave everything behind, my friends, my professional network, just everything, you know, to move? And how I thought about this is really that kind of the thing that you cannot put money on, right? For you, it was freedom, moving to Estonia. And for me, it was actually a secret dream of mine to have a happy family one day, you know, which I hadn't had. So I thought, I'm going to invest, and this is going to be shit tons of money, you know, because moving to the US, oh my gosh, very expensive. But I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to risk it, you know, and even if it doesn't work out, I want to risk for my dreams, you know. And then it actually did turn. Oh yeah. And then what I did is I started my own business in user research. That was my favorite thing to do at Wise. But I think what I mentioned, that these things, it's not like you take a risky decision and then from the beginning it's so amazing. Do you know what I mean? Because actually moving here was pretty hard, and how I can put a number on that is I thought about this, like a metric for your overwhelm. How can you measure your overwhelm and how hard something is? Because I thought the cry count, how often do you cry? You know, if you put a count in, for like a normal baseline for me, it's once a quarter, like every 3 months I cry. That's like normal. But when I moved here, I think I cried like 2 times a week because it was so overwhelming that stepping into a step-mom role, growing my own business, figuring out a completely new country. Oh my gosh. So,
Wow.
but it's clearly paying off. Now it's been almost a year and it's paying off.
I love that, the overwhelm meter that you've made for yourself.
Yes.
I can honestly relate to it so much,
Yeah.
so much. Like I have these downtimes where I am normally like the happy-go-lucky kind of person, and it's very weird how sometimes people think that, oh, someone who has, a certain amount of energy can't have a downtime, but it happens.
Yes.
And sometimes you can hit the lowest lows without you even realizing. So I think for me too, like that overwhelm meter keeps hitting, the 0 to 180 sometimes, and it goes crazy.
Yes.
So I can really relate to that. Yep.
I think that's part of making big risky decisions.
It really is. It
Yeah.
really is. Because, when you're at that low point, that's when you start, I think there's different phases of it as well, right? Because yes, there is that part where you feel bad about, something, you start questioning, why did I do it? Could have done something better. And you start thinking about all the good things that you could have done, except, what you have right now. But then I think that's also the part where you realize that what you have right now is because of a choice you made. And this will definitely have low points where you are right now, but this is where the peak starts.
Yes.
So,
I just recently was talking to my friends about this because one thing I did after moving here is I wrote this little book with a friend about courage, and it's these stories about people being courageous in love, work, and so on. But what we talked about is courage. It's not only making the brave decision, like when you moved from Pakistan over here, right? That was the decision. That takes a lot of courage. But actually, the other part of courage is when you took the decision, and then there's the part that gets really, really hard. Like, I don't know, you're in Estonia, you have no friends, everyone is behaving so weird culturally, the part that gets really hard, that's the other part of courage, to know that, is this still a decision I wanted to make? Okay, well, how do I walk through the hard time in a way that I can be satisfied with integrity? That's the other part of it. Yeah.
Oh, I am loving this so much. But now coming to friendships, Gina, because again, leaving friends behind, moving to a different place. You've also done it, I think, a couple of times. I've done it only twice, and I feel like I can already feel the pain here and there somewhere. It's hard. It is very hard leaving people behind, where because it takes a lot of time and effort and energy, to cultivate those friendships, to build those connections, to find people who you can trust and they can trust you back, right? And then out of those people, there's very, very few who you can definitely call, friends for life or even family. So I want to understand, because being authentic in friendships, in relationships, right, it does take a toll on you as well as a person. So how has it been for you in terms of building friendships in the different parts of the world that you've been in, and also maintaining those friendships and cultivating them beyond that physical, distance?
Yes. Oh, I love this topic. So first, I do want to say that, we just talked about the cry count, the cry metric of overwhelm. It's actually in those times where my cry count is the highest that it pays off so hard to have invested in friendships, because all the hardest times in my life, like going through divorce, other hard times, like moving here, it's really my friends that have helped me in the hard times. I can talk to them, I can like cry it out, but we can think through together, how can I go through this, right? Oh my gosh, I don't know where I would be without my friends, right? So I actually, again, I really believe investing in friendships is the best investment you can make. And about how to maintain this, actually, I want to add one more thing, because there's this guy called Ken. He wrote a book, Happy Money, and he put it so well, why investing in friendships is a smart investment decision. And how he says is, why are we freaking out about saving up money? We're freaking out because what if I lose my job and I can't pay my rent and I can't find a job for 6 months? I need savings. And then he said, well, what if you had invested in some really good friends? Because the reality is they would let you sleep on their couch for a week at a time. You can rotate, and you would be fine. And I thought that's such a great way to explain why investing in friendship is really smart, also around your fears, you know. And then how to maintain friendships, that's actually a skill, especially when you move abroad. It's actually really helpful to maintain the friendships that these people have known you the longest. So they can reflect back to you. They can say, okay, right now, Sanya, you're crying every other day. But let me tell you, 10 years ago, when you went through this hard thing, you did it, you know, you were your best selves. And those are such valuable friendships.
For sure.
And there's totally ways you can maintain that. You know, for example, actually, just one example, there are so many. Actually, maybe I want to mention two. Okay, so one example is with my friend Linda, who lives somewhere else. I actually have a weekly 1 hour call scheduled, and we have thought through how do we want to do this 1 hour in a way that gives us most like out, you know. So we've actually thought it through and kind of optimized this 1 hour. So do that with Linda, or then with my other friends that live in other countries. Actually, when we meet up, we make it special. So, you know, we kind of save up for that too. So for example, now my sister who's in Germany, I'm going to meet her in Paris for 3 days at Christmas. And we're going to be
so nice.
Really special and fun, you know, to think of like, special ways of doing that. Actually, yeah, it's totally possible. I believe in this so much. That's like another book I wrote with a friend is like a friendship challenge for even long distance friends. It's totally possible. It's so worth it.
Talk more about that book as well, about the friendship challenge.
Yes, so that's actually a Christmas challenge. So I don't know if you knew this about Germans, but they're really into Advent calendars. So Advent are the days leading up to Christmas, 1st December to 24th. So it's actually very common, even for couples, for example, that they would make little Advent calendars for each other. It's not just a kids thing. So my friend Maggie had this idea to write an Advent calendar for friends, so that every day they hear an inspiring real story and they can do something, you know, long distance to like strengthen their friendship. And you know, and what a nice way leading up to Christmas to like actually invest in your friendship and build happy memories instead of just rushing around to buy gifts or whatever, you know. I
need to get that book. I need to get a hold of that book. I really do. No, because honestly, I think for me too, like with long distance friendships, I think it's so hard sometimes to, you know, maintain it. And I didn't really realize until I moved from Estonia to Finland, because Estonia, so in Pakistan, you know, all the friends that I had were pretty much the same friends that I had, let's say 10 years of school, stayed in the same circle. And that circle started becoming really smaller. And this is also relevant to something that I heard right before this call, where that lady said, the more we grow, the smaller our inner circle becomes. And I think if I can relate this to my experience, it would definitely be my friendships from Pakistan, where I feel like there's so many that kind of, I don't know, like I think people grow apart and all. I think it's very natural, but it's healthy, but it's also very sad at the same time, you know? It's a mix of emotions. But I think it was more after I left Estonia that I felt it even more, you know, where I was like, oh shit, you know, long distance friendships, they require a lot of work. And it's not just a one-way street, like it's a two-way, right? And I think more than anything, COVID is when all of us realized, you know, who are the people that are going to be there for you, you know? So yeah, there was a lot of, I think, expectation settings. And that's where I started learning about this, you know, how it's good to, you know, tell people exactly how you feel. And again, you know, like it can be intimidating, but you need that little ounce of courage to tell, you know, your closest people and the people you genuinely care about, that, you know, maybe this is something that you expect from, you know, the time and the energy that you're giving into this person as a friend. So yeah.
It's so brave. It's so brave to kind of ask for what you want. And the thing is, they can say no, and that's okay. You know, but they might say yes, but asking for what you want, super courageous thing in friendship.
I swear, no, it's crazy. It is crazy. But also, Gina, I would really want to understand, like, how has friendships in different parts of the world, right, given you that sort of a cultural perspective? And how has that added to, let's say, your life, you know, the way you think about things? because again, it brings in different flavors, right?
Yeah.
So how has that helped you out as a person?
I mean, that's another thing that I think startups know very well, that if you have diverse opinions from different nationalities, because we had 90 different nationalities at Wise, that it creates better outcomes. And this is not only true about tech products, but it's actually true about my life. Because, so for example, I grew up in Germany, and as a society, you can never generalize, but compared to other countries, looking back now, I think there's more of a focus on what could go wrong and then back up, in Germany. So there's a focus on that. There's this whole joke about insurances, that there are more life insurances sold in Germany than people even exist, So safety is it's actually not a joke, it's true, but you kind of want to laugh about it. Yeah. But so safety is so important as a value, and keeping yourself safe and looking for the dangers. And I want to say there are so many amazing things about Germany. The cars I feel so proud of, like German engineering. But this is an element of the culture that I could not see. I just lived by this mantra. This is how I lived my life. I looked for what's wrong, and then I would be like, uh-oh. And I just thought that's the way you have to look at the world, And then moving to Estonia and moving to the US, both of these countries are countries where they look more at the opportunities, in my opinion. It's more entrepreneurial. I don't want to generalize. That's just how I experienced somehow, so that's been, I can't even ever put a value on this, how amazing that has been for my brain to meet friends that help me not only look at the dangers, but also look at the opportunities. Like, I mean, forever grateful. Those people have, changed my life for the better.
No, honestly, it's for me as well. It's so funny because in Pakistan, for example, when I came, I did not really know too much about veganism.
I bet.
Apparently, it never existed at that time, at least. Don't want to generalize. I don't want people jumping on my back, please. But when I came to Estonia, that's when I met the first vegan.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah, that's where I met my first vegan, person in my life, who's also really, my bestest friend, honestly. But the thing is, that's where I learned, the East and the West, and the cultural perspective was so, so different. There's different flavors of food. Of course, Estonia has a little less variety of food. Please, no judgments and no but still, it's very different, right? But still, like how people find their own unique flavors within what they have. And I think that for me was so interesting to see, because back home, it's so common for people to, just if there's food, there's there's different things and and you need to mix and match, and God knows there's a whole jigsaw puzzle on the table. And then over here, there's a lot of, I think, simplicity that I found. And I genuinely love that so much. And I feel like that's one thing that I live by in my life as well. I love simplicity in people, in food, in cultures, in a lot of things. But the world we live in, is a little complex, I guess. But yeah, and I think that's one thing definitely that I've learned through friendships as well. So yeah.
I do want to say that's so fascinating to hear, because I have so much respect for you, Sanya, because I moved from Germany to Estonia to the US. It's all within the West. But you moved from East to West. The cultural gap you had to bridge is so much bigger. I have so much respect. And it's so fascinating. And how, Scandinavia is actually known for their Scandinavian simple design. But the way you experience that also in terms of food, in terms of more things, and that's so fascinating.
Yeah. Wow. No, I think for me, it was definitely like a complete shift of life, complete shift of thought. Of course, the values are the same. And I feel like wherever anybody goes, the core doesn't change. It's just a few layers that you take off and the more layers that you take on. Yeah. So I think that's just the journey that we're on, right?
Yes.
Oh my God, that was deep. That was deep.
Yeah, it's a chance. I never actually thought of it that way, but I just made the connection that moving to another country is a chance to let go of what you realize actually doesn't serve you, and take on the parts that really do serve.
For example, when we started the call, right? In where you are, it's morning, and maybe the light behind you is probably the sun. And then when I started the call, you're like, oh, I can guarantee that's not the sun behind me. And I'm
For
like,
sure
"No,
not. You have not seen the sun in a while. Yeah.
I have not seen the sun in a week, and I saw it before a week because I was in Pakistan. So, yeah, that's the cultural context we're talking about here.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh my God. But yeah, in terms of investing in broadening your vision, Gina, since we're on that topic, definitely, people, places, thoughts, everything that's around you, everything that's within, that's what combines into this whole vision that you have as a person. So I really want to understand. And I think, oh, this is a good one. And I think it's just coming up right now. So brace yourself. The question is, how has that vision of how you want to live your life changed over, let's say, the last 10 years?
The first thing that comes to mind, I'm just going to mention the first thing that comes to mind, is I feel like small town Germany, where I grew up, and this might not be true for all of Germany. It's definitely not true for Berlin. I can tell you about this. Okay, so I grew up in the south of Germany, small town Germany, and there, looking back, it was kind of important to put a polite face on. When you're talking to someone, you're like polite, you're like, but you might be wearing a mask, and what you actually think, you might not be saying it. I didn't see much of very honest, brave, very authentic communication. Actually, I didn't see that much growing up at all. I just want to say Berlin in Germany is so different. The first time I went to Berlin, I was like 18 and we were at a bar, and this guy walks up to this German guy from Berlin with his girlfriend, and he says to us, "Hey guys, do you have a chewing gum? Because my girlfriend just had sausage and she's smelling really bad." I remember being so shocked. Yeah. So
that's the kind of honesty we're talking about.
Yeah, like, whoa. Yeah, that's Berlin. Berlin is different. Yes. But so then so I got to move to Estonia, and I got to meet wonderful people there. And I think the main thing that has changed, that I understood just how amazing it is if I can be authentic as myself, not put on a mask so much, but be honest about, I actually don't feel comfortable with this, or like, and that's been one of the hardest journeys for me. Oh, anyway, I just want to put this in here. This is a phrase I learned from a guy called Dr. Jim Wilder. He's brilliant. He's this psychologist guy, but he talks about fear bonds versus love bonds. Oh, this is actually great about investing in friendships or relationships. Okay, so when you build love bonds with people, that means that you say things and you do things because you want to, and you trust that we can work it out. Whereas the fear bond looks like, I will say things to you because I'm afraid that if I don't say them, you will be upset. Or I will not say something to you because I'm afraid that you'll be upset. So basically it's fear motivated. And I think I grew up with a lot of fear bonds. That's how I grew them, right? You're kind of careful, you say things, you don't say things. And the biggest shift, this is what I got to learn with my friends, is, okay, I want to build love bonds instead. I want to be brave and say this thing because I want to, and I trust we can figure it out, or I will not do this thing. I will not be at this thing that you invited me to, and I'll be honest and say, I don't like that, or, I don't know. That's a principle I follow that has helped me so much.
I think I honestly have grown up with a lot of people pleasing as well.
Oh,
honestly.
God.
Oh my God. And I feel like it's such a part of our culture back home that it's, now that I see it, I think it's a very deep-rooted issue, honestly, because people pleasing, I mean, it starts off at home. Scared of your parents, you don't want to say something, you don't have that open conversation with your parents. You might have it with your mom, but not with your dad, because, patriarchal culture, it's a very different sort of society that you're living in. So I think, and then that people pleasing, grows further into your friendships, into your work relationships, into your, everything, that all the connections that you have around you are sort of, like bound together by this little people pleasing act that you do here and there. And little do you know that it's, by the time you realize that it's draining everything out of you, and you're not even the person that you're pleasing everybody to be as, that's where you realize, okay, this is either one, I did not know how to draw boundaries. Two, I did not learn how to say no. And both, I should have learned much earlier on in life, but there was no one to teach me that. But I think, honestly, for me, Estonia is where it happened.
They are, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. They're really good at that.
They are so good at that. Oh God. Sometimes I could not see the boundary between, and I feel I've had a discussion with my Estonian friends as well about this. I was like, sometimes I feel like there's no line between when people are being straightforward and when are they being rude.
Yes.
I'm like, I am confused right now. But I think honestly, whatever that was, because people are, very much into their, you get what you see pretty much in a store. They don't really have a lot of time to please anyone or whatever. And very cold as well, by culture, I would say, in terms of when I compare it to where I come from. So I think for me, that was such a big culture shock in a sense, where the only way you can get to know people is not by people pleasing, but being yourself.
Yes.
And I say this and I was actually saying this to a friend of mine, I think a few days ago, that Estonia helped me find me. And then Finland, now where I live, is where I live by me, So, and I feel like this, honestly, has been such a big shift for me as a person. I could not have imagined, coming from where I come from, and then understanding all these things that I'm starting to understand. And it's because of the culture that I'm a part of, regardless of how cold it is, regardless of the challenges and stuff, but still it's given a lot. So I'm very grateful for it.
That's so beautiful how you put that. That almost gave me goosebumps how you said Estonia helped you find yourself. Wow, what a gift, huh?
It really, really did. So definitely for me as well, it was definitely the riskiest decision that I made, but no regrets.
My gosh, I just want to give a shout out to Estonians for being so non-people pleasing. It's really amazing.
I swear to God.
Oh my gosh.
Zero.
They blow my mind. I remember this one time we had a new software engineer join the team and I went to lunch with him. He was Estonian. And I was trying to keep a polite conversation going. And he only ever responded with a few things and then didn't say anything. And I was becoming so stressed. Like I remember starting to sweat, I'm like, how do I keep this conversation going and make it polite? Like I'm so stressed. And then I asked him, like, why aren't you like saying anything? And he said, well, I only speak if I have something really worthy to say, and he was so okay just sitting in silence. And I just remember thinking, you're so ahead of me in terms of being okay with yourself. I mean, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of learnings about cultures, and it teaches you so much about people, right? So much, like how we think and who we are and why do we say who we are the way we do. It's insane. Yeah,
that's what I see you do. You've taken the best of these cultures and you're building a life that's kind of taking the best of both, and beautiful how you build that into your own self and the way you create your life. It's inspiring.
Last question. Oh no, second last question. We still have time. So I want to talk about, there's this challenge that you told me that you're on. And I think it's such a brave challenge, honestly, and it's inspiration. I tried doing something similar, but it was more relevant to, not complaining.
That's fascinating.
Yes. Even though I don't think I'm a big complainer, but even the little things, sometimes can collect into like, this feels bad because and suddenly you have this big list of everything that's wrong in your life. Even though it's not really the most wrong that, you can see if you look at it from a different perspective. So yeah, I want to come back to your challenge. So you started a 30-day challenge, a 30-day courage challenge.
Yes.
And I want to know, where did that come from and how is that challenge going?
Courage, I think, is such a theme. If you think about brave investment decisions, which we talked about, can be moving to another country and all of that. Yeah. It's so important. And honestly, even in the world that we live in right now with the political stuff that's happening, having courage is just so essential. So my friend and I, we did this together. I basically collected stories from people who made brave decisions, in all areas of their life. And so how we put together this challenge is, you have an inspiring story every day, and then there's like a little challenge for you to implement courage in this area of your life too. And you can do it by yourself or with like a courage buddy to encourage each other. And for me, how it's really going is there's a lot of sweat involved. I start sweating when I have to when I do something brave. That's just my It's just a little Kickstarter that helps sometimes when you're going through a time in your life where you feel like nothing's happening or I'm overwhelmed. That helps, like
a little kick in the butt that we need sometimes.
Yes. What did you learn about investing in your mindset from going towards less complaining? Because you invested energy. What do you feel you're getting out of that? Or do you even think it's a good investment?
I think it really is, because I did not feel the tables are gonna turn. But
sorry, sorry.
No, it's actually a good question. I love it when you're making me think as well on the go. I love that. But yeah, coming back to how I invested my energy in the no complaint challenge, I think honestly it was more of a decision that paid me back with energy than me giving in energy, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
For example, complaining less spared me the mental energy that I was putting in to complain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was wasting less, but I was gaining more because I wasn't wasting anything.
I didn't expect that, but as soon as you said it, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really, really, I think that definitely put me in a lot of perspective as well, and this is where I normally, find myself, for example, when I hit my low points, and of course, yes, you would turn to, your friends, family, people, but then sometimes you have to deal with, actually, you can't talk to people, but you need to deal with things on your own. Yes, that's the reality of life. So I think for me as well, like one way that I bounce back out of, my low points is definitely getting into that mindset where after a certain point where I realize that I've given away too much of my mental energy to either the sadness or, the complaining or the low point itself or whatever, I don't know what happens, but there's a complete switch and I give zero energy to it at all. There comes a point where, it hits a zero and then I'm like, okay, no more energy to this. And then what happens right afterwards is that you start recharging again because you're no longer giving energy away, but you're just keeping it within you and it starts growing towards, putting you back in the right direction. So
that sounds like when you have made an investment, but it's a bad investment and you're actually at a loss, it's like complaining. Energy goes down and down, your loss gets bigger and bigger, and then you finally decide to sell this bad investment at a loss, but then you have space freed up to recharge again and make better decisions. That's how it sounds.
Exactly. Because again, it works the same way, right? Like even with jobs, right? Again, when you want to close a door and open a new one, it takes a lot of courage. You need to shift that resource, from one to the other. With finances, it's the same thing, exactly like you mentioned. You need to stop investing in something that's just not giving you any returns to actually invest in something that might give you returns or will eventually give you returns. So yeah, shifting resources. Wow.
Fascinating. Thank you for sharing that.
You too. You made me thought about this. So thank you. Thank you. Honestly, I loved the energy so much in this, like, oh, wow. Like I felt it like deep inside. Solid. Thank you so much for that. But I have my last question, Gina. And surprise, surprise, it's so weird that we're actually completing our podcast pretty much on the dot. Like
that's
exactly.
when you interview a German. No, joking.
I'm gonna keep this. Oh my God. No, but seriously, we actually like put in a slot of like 1.5 hours, and here we are like 3 minutes away. Wow.
Let's do it. Let's do it in 3 minutes.
Last question, Gina. So in your, amazing career so far, and the life and the relationships and the connections that you've built, what is your advice to people in their 20s who are starting off? There's a lot of tech layoffs happening as well. So people are losing their jobs all around us. Again, people might have, gotten stuck in that, zone of, I need to continue climbing the ladder. But now suddenly when that ladder vanishes, you need to find a new ladder to climb on, or you need to, rethink your goals. So there a lot of people are in that position, So I just want to understand, what is your advice to people in terms of investing in their friendships, investing in their finances, investing in their careers, and most importantly, investing in themselves?
Okay, well, 2 things come to mind. One is for sure, if you're in your 20s, and maybe even if you're in your 30s, and I can't really tell you beyond that, but prioritize investing in learning over money or job title for sure. Like go to places, even if you feel like your job title isn't impressive, but if you're going to learn, go there, because that's going to pay off later. So that's just for the career choices. I really believe in that strongly. And then for relationships, I think using this idea from Dr. Jim Wilder, build love bonds, or invest in learning how to build love bonds where you are who you are and say things because you want to, instead of fear bonds, because that's what you want long term. You want this community, professional friendship where you can be yourself, and you can work it out together. Yeah.
And in terms of finances, do you have any advice on that?
In terms of finances, I think you could interview people who are even better at that. I mean, for me, my two things are, make financial investments that match your values. So you don't have it's still be authentic with your money. And then if you make mistakes, which I've definitely made, and you lose money, build a love bond with yourself, be forgiving and loving towards yourself, because, it's a learning.
I love that so much. Amazing. Thank you so, so much, Gina. Right on the dot, we hit the 30. Thank you. Yay. I am so excited about this podcast. Honestly, I feel like there's very few people who ask me about, normally it's me asking people, and you have definitely been the first person to, allow me to share my thoughts as well. So thank you so much for giving me your space. And for me, it means a lot that you even said yes to this and shared your journey about your friendships, about your career, about your, time at Wise, and even after that. And I wish you the best with your family and in your business as well. Support all the fucking way. And I really mean it. And just keep being you.
Thank you so much. And time just flew by. I would have so many more questions to ask you. Maybe we'll do that another time. But yes, I'm inspired by how you live your authentic life, using the best of all cultures, right? Radiating with authenticity and joy. So thank you for this conversation.
Thank you so much.